Hey guys. I'm Chrissy. I'm one of the console operators at the planetarium and also a mechanical engineering student at UNT. So our presenter Oliver today is going to be giving you a tour of some of the constellations and other celestial objects that you can find in this week's sky, while also giving you a tour of Stellarium, which is going to be the software that he's going to be using today. And I'll provide a link to download that if you're interested. It's a free software that you can use. So these shows that we're doing, the weekly sky updates, are at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. Every week, every Saturday. And then after the Star Talk, we'll be showing an astronomy-themed movie today, and that's going to be around 25 minutes. And then after the Star Talk, we're going to do a Q&A before the movie. But if there's any other questions during the movie, we can answer those after as well. So these shows are free, but since we can't be in the planetarium giving shows, we've lost our source of income. So we would greatly appreciate any donations that you can give to the Sky Theater Fund, and I'll provide a link for that as well. But I'll go ahead and turn it over to Oliver so he can start the Star Talk.
All right, yeah. So, hey guys, my name is Oliver Velez. So I'm a student at UNT, and I'm studying computer science. Usually, I work at the planetarium both as an outreach speaker, as well as the console operator for our Sky Dome. But under the present circumstances, I'm glad to introduce myself as the host of this week's show. So as Chrissy said before, I'm going to be giving you guys kind of like a tour of our night sky and really just show what's up and really how to orient yourselves in our sky, because that's really, I think, what's important is getting to know how we can read our sky. And as I'm doing that, I'm going to be using our Stellarium software. So it's a free software. We're going to have a link for that in the comments as well. And I'll show you guys kind of how to use it so it's not super daunting and it's super easy for you guys to do it as well. While I'm doing that, we're also going to have it open for our Q&A session. So if you guys just have any questions, either just about anything astronomy related or maybe anything that I touch on and you guys maybe want me to elaborate more on, I can do that for you guys definitely. So again, just post that while I'm talking, and then at the very end, I'll try to get to them. Hopefully I should be able to get to all of them. At that point, we'll have about 25-minute show. It's called Dynamic Earth, and it's really just about kind of the makeup of our planet and all that. It's super cool. And then after that ends, I'll go ahead and finish up the Q&A if there are any questions that come in during the video as well. So hopefully everything makes sense and that's understood. So let's go ahead and just jump into it. So let me go ahead and share my screen for you guys. All right. So this program that we have right here for you guys is called Stellarium. Let me go ahead and just make this full screen. Cool. So what you guys are looking at right now is a field with the sky up. Maybe you guys, your computers are a little bit blurry or whatever. That should be able to fix itself in here in a minute. Just take some time refreshing and all that. Hopefully though, some of you guys can see a clear screen. You'll see that I am located in Earth, Houston, because that is where I'm filming from right now. But for the sake of let's go ahead and move to Denton, where the planetarium normally would be, and also helping you guys at home who have downloaded the software maybe know how to change your settings so that you can update the sky to wherever you may be. Because sometimes I think it comes in and it's just set to a different city. So good to know how to change that. So right away, you'll see that I have my location network on. So that's how it does it for me. It just knows, it picks up my Wi-Fi, knows where I am. But if that for some reason doesn't work, you can just go to the search bar here, and I will go ahead to Denton, United States, and you see that when I click that, it will go ahead and change that right there. The sky changed a little bit in the background, so it should just go ahead and work right away. And if you guys want to keep that, you guys can just click this use current location as default. So that will set it for whenever you guys open up the program. So that being said, by the way, that I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. We have these two menus. Stellarium is pretty easy to use because it only really has these two. I consider this one at the bottom kind of more of like the sky menu and sort of like the viewing options. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and turn that off right now. And then this one over here is more of how to work the software itself. So that first window that we went to was just the location window. So if we actually go to this second one here, that's going to be our date and time. So we're going to go ahead and change that because obviously we really can't see any constellations when it's daytime. So let's go ahead and change it up a few hours. Let's say about 10 o'clock, 10:07, which by the way, really easy to read. This is going to be the year followed by the month and day. And then of course our time right here. So this is just military time, obviously 22. 22 is just 10 p.m. and then we got the seconds ticking by. And I'm just going to go ahead and leave that up and on because I think it's good to sort of know what we're looking at all times. All right, so we have most everything situated. So we have our night sky, we have it indented. Now, quick little understanding of these buttons down here because I will be sort of pressing them on and off. So this first little section here, these are going to be to toggle the constellations. And I'm not going to press this right now, just you'll see why later, but if you guys want to mess around with this, this is how to toggle them on and off. This will be the labels, and I'll go ahead and leave those off for right now as well. And then of course this is going to be the art. So just so we don't have anything too cluttered, I'll leave those off for right now. Also navigation. So if you want to move around, all you do is just click on the screen and just drag. So simple as that. To zoom in and out, you basically just scroll up and down as you would on a page. So let's zoom out a little bit so we get more going on here. All right, so at this point, I think we have everything situated, and any buttons that oh, actually one more here. So we have our atmosphere button, which is really just the A key, or this one with the clouds. If you just do that, all you'll see is it turns off the atmosphere. So it kind of gives us more of a perfect view without any kind of light pollution, all that of our night sky. But for our purposes, I'm going to go ahead and leave that off. The last button is if you press G or press this button down here, that takes away, it toggles on and off the ground. And really all that does is it shows you kind of more of the sky that's below us. It's below us, and you'll see Jupiter and Saturn actually are there at the bottom. So cool little thing you can see there. So with everything situated, let's go ahead and really get this talk going. So the big point that I like to make during these talks, because there's a lot that we could possibly throw you, and I think it's good to know kind of how everything works, how that pattern goes, because patterns are really big, and you'll see what I mean here. So if I go, all I did right there is just press Shift N, and all that did is just take me to north, because that's where I want to go ahead and start our talk here. So in the north, there is one specific star that I want to look for. It's called our North Star, also known as Polaris, and that's going to be this guy right here. So when I click on him, you'll see a bunch of text come up, and Polaris is the main thing here. I am going to turn some of this stuff off. You guys don't have to worry about this at home, but if you want to know how, I just turn off, put this onto none, and I turn on the name, catalog number. But yeah, not super important, but it just kind of cleans things up for this. So we have Polaris, that's going to be our North Star. So, oh, also when you click on things, if you want to click off, just right click. So the reason why I take us here is because the North Star is super important to kind of get an understanding of what we're looking at as our Earth is, as we know, rotating around the sun and revolving around its axis. So when that's happening, it's going to cause a certain movement that we're going to see over and over again, and that's where that pattern comes from. So to first find our North Star, oh, by the way, what we saw right there is probably meteors or satellites or something. It's not UFOs, but it's kind of a setup so that it's like a live night sky and very accurate. So that's what's going on there if you guys see those flying by. But the way that you can find a North Star, because it's actually not as big as it would be portrayed on here, is if you find another very famous group of stars called the Big Dipper, and that's going to be, this guy right here. So I guess because I've already clicked on them, it brings up some of our constellations here. So what we're looking at right now is the Big Dipper, also known as part of Ursa Major, and then Ursa Minor, also known as the Little Dipper. So Big Dipper and Little Dipper. If you guys want to know, you look at the sky and you see a dipper and you're curious as to which one it is, more than guarantee you're looking at the Big Dipper just because it's a lot bigger and brighter. The stars in it are brighter, so that's how you'll know. So when you find that dipper, if you go ahead to the end of the constellation here away from the handle and you go basically upward in that pan, if you keep going in that straight line, it'll take you to the North Star, also known as Polaris, and that's an easy way to find it. Quick other way, let's say, that's an easy way to find it obviously, but let's say the Big Dipper is further down in the sky. So I think, yeah, even just a couple hours later, it starts going below, so you can imagine it'll eventually hit the trees. So what you can do in that case is you can go to the opposite here. So if you start from the tail, go through there, and you'll find Cassiopeia. So Cassiopeia, it kind of looks like a W in this case right now when it's here at the bottom, but you can imagine that when it spins around and goes up top, it'll look sort of like an M shape or I guess a 3 when it's here up on the right. But the point is, these are the two constellations I like using to find the North Star. And the reason why I talk so much about it, because I know I've spent a little bit of time on it, is because if I go ahead to this bottom menu here again, and remember this is just the sky menu. If I press this button here, we're going to fast forward and you'll see seconds start ticking by a little bit faster. I'm going to go ahead and just press it a couple times here. And at that point, you can see kind of our night sky moving around, changing as the hours go. And while that's happening, pay close attention to the North Star here. And you'll probably see that it's really not moving all that much. So this is just a really long-winded way for me to say that it is above our North Pole, and you can imagine that if that point above there is, and we're spinning, that point doesn't ever move. So it's a really good reference point to everything else that's going on. And I feel like that's pretty important because it really puts into perspective how the sky is moving. And as I'll show you guys here in a second, because I'm going to go ahead, I'm just going to do this. Show you here in a second. I'm going to go take us to our southern sky. So remember, Shift N takes us north and Shift S will take us south. So I spent all that time to kind of get in perspective that reference point, but I'm going to show you guys kind of another way that I like to think about it. Don't worry about too much what I'm doing here. I'm just turning on a specific line here. So what I've put up right here is what's called our ecliptic. So our ecliptic, I like to think is important because it is the pathway that the sun travels through according to us, our perspective here on Earth. So I'm not going to do it right now, but if I were to speed up time, you would see the sun rise through that line there, as well as the moon and our zodiacal constellations. So the zodiacal constellations are the ones that most people are very familiar with, and I'm going to show you guys how to find a few of them. So, so we can actually kind of tie our north and south skies together right here. And we have Ursa Major here at the top. So before we found using these two stars going upward is how we found our North Star. But if we already know where that is, also just keep in mind, if you're looking at the north sky, you know where north is, all you do is turn around and that's basic south. So it's a little bit of a weird view here on Stellarium, but you'll get an idea when you're looking out in real life. But you'll look the opposite way that we did before. And if you go down, you can kind of see the head, or well, you can see this little question mark shape right there, right? It's kind of reverse facing, but I like to say it's pretty clear, especially this star here at the bottom. And this star is Regulus, the alpha star. So the alpha star, I'm going to be mentioning this a few times at this point. It is the brightest star in a constellation. So that is going to be Regulus, and it's part of Leo. So once you find that question mark thing and then Regulus there, you'll look kind of a little bit more to the left and you'll find another bright star here known as Denebola. And that is going to make up kind of the bottom of Leo there. So you can kind of imagine Leo looks kind of like a sphinx in a way. At least I like to think so. I really like Leo a lot, but I could be biased because I actually am a Leo. So who knows? So now that we're here on Leo, it's part of it's the first zodiac constellation. It's going to be the first one on our ecliptic. And then if we go a little bit more to the left, we'll see this really bright star, Spica. So Spica is now actually the alpha star, the brightest star of Virgo. So if we know where Leo is, we'll get an idea that if we just kind of go not quite under him, but facing that direction, it's going to be this really bright star here. And Virgo, I like to make out basically with this line right there. It kind of opens up and there's a few stars over in this direction. There's different representations of it, but yeah, I gotta say, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not too well versed on this one. I like to, so what we're doing, by the way, right here is star hopping. So that's gonna be really useful when some of these stars here aren't as visible when you're looking out in real life. So that's kind of the essence of what we're doing here is we're using our clues and what we know to find other constellations or other celestial objects. So just as I found Leo and we jump to Spica, and we've got Virgo there. And you'll see this other really bright star up here called Arcturus. So Arcturus is the alpha star of Boötes. And this constellation, I think, kind of looks like a weird organism virus thing. I don't know, it's wild imagination, but it's there at the bottom here. So if you're going away from the ecliptic here. And these three stars right here that I've talked about, that is what is called our spring triangle. And our spring triangle is just, if you know that it's up, you can kind of tell like what season it is. And that sort of ties back to Ancient people that saw these constellations way, way back in the day and probably came up with them. This is a good way for them to know, to read the sky. If they know this pattern, they know that these constellations are up. That's how they know what time of year it is. So you can think about how useful the sky would be as a calendar. And also for exploration, because if you know where you are, then you know which way you're going. You know you're going north if you look at the North Star. So yeah, you guys hopefully get the idea there. So we have this little grid right here. Remember, this is kind of more toward the north, but we got Ursa Major. We've got Leo here on the ecliptic in Virgo. If you go a little bit further left here on this ecliptic, there's actually, I think, this square right here. That's how I know what I'm looking at is kind of just a simple square, and that's going to be Libra. Oop. There we go. I was a little bit off. But Libra is going to be the next one here, and it's going to be visible tonight. Let's go ahead and face the ground a little bit more. So that'll be up here, again, kind of following in this archway. And you guys, I clicked on it a little bit early, but right here where the moon is going to be, and keep in mind, this is about, let's say 10:05. So the moon will be coming up by the horizon, and it's kind of on this ecliptic line. So that's a pretty good hint that you guys can start off with your star hopping later. As you take the moon, and if you go kind of in this right direction, you'll find Scorpius, Libra, Virgo, and Leo. A little bit about Scorpius to know what you're looking for there. So I'm going to skip just an hour real quick because it'll be a little bit further up in the sky. And you'll see the moon also is, again, following this ecliptic line, as well as these are too. So remember, it's just kind of that pathway. So Scorpius is really easy to spot, I think, because of his signature tail right there. Kind of curves like a scorpion's would, and it opens up to these stars over here. So there's different stick representations of Scorpius. It's always a scorpion, but the one that I've seen kind of looks like a hammerhead shark in a way, because it just keeps going up there and then it opens up that way. So that's actually something I like talking about sometimes, how there's different representations of these constellations and different stories that go behind them. And that's really just because of tradition. We've passed them down, so we know what to look for, and it just makes things a lot easier. But there are certain constellations that maybe it is not necessarily like easier for you, but it's kind of the image that you have in mind when looking for it. So I'm not going to show you guys, but Sagittarius is known to be like a centaur holding a bow and arrow. You know, I'll show you guys if I have time, but I don't want to get too off topic here. But anyway, so we have Scorpius up. So Scorpius, I actually do know the story behind it, and I really like talking about it because I think it further shows kind of that pattern in the sky that I've talked about. And I think it's a good way to know, again, like what you're reading in the sky and how you know, like what time of year it is and all that. So Scorpius is actually part of Orion's story. So I'm going to go ahead. We're in June right now. I'm just going to skip to winter, which is the polar opposites. And when I do that, it'll go ahead and bring up the labels up. Where is Orion? I see Orionids. There we go. So these three stars, I know it's kind of cluttered right now, but these three stars are really easy to spot in December, and that's going to be Orion. And so Orion is said to have been a hunter, and he was really boastful about it as well, and he would brag to anyone that would listen. And Orion, the word got to how great of a hunter he was. The word got to Apollo, one of the gods back then. And Apollo, he really didn't like just the fact that this human was going around boasting about how great he was. So he decided to give him a little challenge, and he conjured up a giant scorpion, and he sent it down on Earth to test Orion's abilities. So the two were locked in battle for a really, really long time, and it got to the point where it was starting to cause some destruction, and Apollo had to kind of relent. And so he took the two, and he did what Greek gods, I guess, did back in that time, and he put them up into the night sky. But he didn't want that fight to continue on in the heavens, and so what he did was he made sure to separate them and put them on other ends of the sky. So that being said, if you see Orion, then you know you won't be looking for Scorpius. So it'll also kind of give you a hint that Orion is kind of a winter constellation, whereas Scorpius is kind of more of I believe it's a summer constellation officially. So starting around this time, you should be able to see it without having to wait too long. Oop, not quite June. There we go. All right, so I've thrown a good amount at you guys, so let's go ahead and just summarize a little bit. So we have these four constellations here on our ecliptic, which again, just our pathway of the sky. So if I speed up an hour, you guys will kind of get more of an idea of that. So again, that's just Leo, Virgo, Libra, and Scorpius. And then of course, since we got Virgo and Leo, we can complete our spring triangle. And of course, we got Ursa Major in our north, our Little Dipper here in the north. A little bit under the trees. If you guys are early enough, let's say like 9, when it's still getting dark, you could also see Gemini, the twins, famous because of these really bright stars right here, Pollux and Castor. So if you're able to find those 2 really bright stars, those are the heads of Gemini, and you can just imagine they just point down, basically. So and I think Cancer's here as well, though I guess that one would be a little bit dimmer. So I went ahead and bring up a good amount in the sky here, but keep in mind, I really just want to, I want you guys to leave this talk kind of picking some things up, maybe getting the stepping stones to star hopping yourselves and maybe impressing your friends. Because I know when before I really started this job, you know, I knew a couple constellations, but I didn't ever know when they were going to appear or when to look for them or any of that. So I've really learned a lot just because of really understanding how the sky moves more than just what's in the sky. But besides that, there is a lot of really cool stuff that Stellarium does for you. You can see, let's say like the moon, for example. So if I go ahead and double click that, it's going to center on that object. So some of the cool things that Stellarium can do is you can get a really in-depth view of certain celestial objects. So a really good one right here would be our moon. So you can see that when I zoom in there, I click on it, you guys can see more details. And obviously I took a lot of these labels off, but there's a lot more that it can tell you there if you guys are curious. But it's not even just the moon. Like there's a lot in here. We have some, let's say we have some deep sky objects. So if you guys want to turn those on, the labels for that, you guys can just press that as well as key D. And that will also bring some things up. So let's look for one real quick that I really like, which is the Horsehead Nebula, which I think should be up right now. You know, unfortunately it's not, so I'm just going to go ahead and let's do the Orionids. I say the Orion Nebula. Words and stuff. Bear with me here. Okay, so you'll see when I'm zooming in there, it'll kind of make a clearer picture. So really cool stuff that Stellarium can do that you guys, I don't want to bog you guys down with too much information, throw too much at you, but I just want to let it known that this is an option for you guys if you guys want to kind of explore more of our night sky further than what I've covered in our talk.